For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in on your favorite podcast app. Summer's over. I'm just going to say it. Summer's over. I got to tell you, 3 years ago, 3.5 almost, I retired from syndicated radio for the most part. I still dabble, right? I still do this podcast. But generally, after we signed off from our syndicated radio show called Top of the Charts, I said, I think I'm done with working. My plan initially, when I was in my 20s, was to retire at 40 years old. I was 39 at the time, and we came up to the 15-year anniversary of the show, and so that January, and I've talked about this before, that January, April would have been the 15-year mark, I came in after Christmas break. We don't usually tape in December, so I was communicating with the team, but I was kind of like, let me think about this over Christmas, spend some time with my husband, and I said, I think I'm just done. I think that it's a long time. 15 years, the music industry has changed, the celebrity world has changed, entertainment reporting has changed, news in general has changed. It's not that I'm too old to do this at 39 years old. I just said, I don't like the music that's out. I don't know all these gangster rapper names, Lil Squiggy and Bebops and Cool Jizz, or not Cool Jizz. But you know what I'm getting at. The Cardi B's, the Flocka Wakas, but I'm just like, I don't care. And so for the last few years of doing the show, we didn't incorporate any new music. We kind of just had this rotation of the same songs every 2 or 3 weeks. And it was, Miley Cyrus Party in the USA, which by today's standards is already old, right? That's already outdated. That's old stuff. That's, your Celine Dion, your Adele, your Beyonce, your Taylor Swift songs. I mean, we weren't playing the ones that are trending now and they're getting the fans going now. We were playing the ones from 4 or 5 years ago. So I was kind of phoning it in to a certain extent. We still had great celebrity guests. We were doing, travel tourism programming. We were covering red carpets. Things were still great. But there was just something where I was kind of I'm phoning it in. I'm not excited about doing the show. We would tape it. We kind of had a weird schedule where we eventually just started taping Sunday afternoons. It used to be the process would kind of take all week, and then we would tape either on a Thursday night or we would tape on a Sunday night. And then after a while, I was kind of I'm going to come in, I'm going to sit at the microphone. It's going to take me 7 minutes. It's literally going to take me 7 minutes to record this 2-hour show because I'm going to come on. Hey, it's Jeremy Bradley. This is Top of the Charts. Let's get to the music. And then I just record the next segment, which comes 15 minutes later. Then there's another music set. I just record the next segment that comes 15 minutes after that. And then I'm done after 7 minutes. And I was like, okay, there were some weeks, by the way, we would pre-tape celebrity interviews that I wouldn't even sit down in the chair. I'd be like, you guys just use that intro from before. I already we taped the interview 2 weeks ago. Just use a general closing segment that thanks for listening. Talk to you next week. And I'm not even coming in for this. So when it gets to that point, I'm not even phoning it in. I wasn't even coming in. I was just like, yeah, piece it together. You guys can do it. We've all worked together. And again, I've mentioned this too. Our team has been together for a good 18, 19 years, from syndicated newspaper content to radio programming to podcasts to books to everything. We're a solid group. They can do it without me. And so my point is that summer's over, and that's not a big deal to me. And I'm talking now to the retirement community because I don't know that if it's a holiday weekend. I don't even know. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter because I'm not Sunday night going home after whatever, whether it was, a weekend at the lake or something. I'm not at Sunday night at 10 o'clock going, oh, fuck, I gotta work. Oh, my God, back to work tomorrow. Because if that was the case, first of all, I would get a different job. I would find something different to do. I own our company. So, but if it got to that point, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm out then. I'm out. I'm done. But when you retire and when you don't have those obligations, where you don't have, oh, I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Oh, I've got to stay late today. It's a totally different feeling, my friends. And my mom, when I did this 3 years ago, she said, you're going to be so bored that summer. You're going to be so bored. And I said, you have to realize is that since I was a grown-up and I was either working for somebody else or I was starting to form my own company while working for somebody else and hosting. Now, let me just recap what I was doing all at the same time. I was hosting our Top 40 music show, hosting our country music show, hosting a podcast. I was the Winnipeg Cheapskate in the Winnipeg Free Press and writing and producing and starring in videos for our daily newspaper in a weekly segment. I was publishing books. I had a best-selling book. I was doing book signings. I was appearing on local media as Winnipeg Cheapskate because that was my book that everybody was talking about at the time. I was still writing a weekly newspaper column for Emerson, Manitoba's community newspaper. I was overseeing my company. So when you look at something like that, that's not an 8-hour day. That's not, it was a lot. Now, I'm not complaining because I loved it, right? I mean, I was having great success. I was making a shit ton of money. I'm not complaining at all about what I was going. Maybe I'm looking back at it now and saying, I should have slowed down. I should have enjoyed my time more. But you know what? Now I'm 42 now. I want to lay around and do sweet fuck all day, or I want to just lay around with my husband and my dogs, or we want to just, veg out and order food or go to a park and do nothing. I'm going to do that. Boring? Probably to a lot of people. So it's funny because now, when there's that last hurrah for Labor Day weekend, sorry, they're telling me that did I totally screw this up? Why is people are having a freak out across the way? Now, we've been together long enough. I know when there's something wrong. I was just saying that. Oh, I didn't do okay. So I'm still on that initial welcome segment, and I was supposed to go to a commercial and then get into this story. Here's the thing. I don't care. It's my show. It's my business. It's my company. I'll do it, all right? And then what's going to end up happening is they're going to say to me in my ear, 30 seconds, we're out of time, wrap up the entire show, and I haven't even done a commercial break. But people will, this time of the year, people are going and saying like, oh my God, summer's over already. Oh my God, Labor Day is like the last weekend of like summer, and like, oh my God, it's back to work and the kids are back in school. I don't have that feeling. I didn't even realize it was a holiday weekend. Didn't know. I'm not concerned. And so people will ask me then, what did you do this summer? What did you guys do this summer? Did you go anywhere? You know what? We didn't. We hung out in West Hollywood. We went back to Winnipeg a few times. Didn't do any like big travels. Just kind of hung out. And then people feel bad as though like, oh my God, you didn't travel. Oh, and then I've got to remind them and say, do you know, for when I was hosting that show that I was just talking about, I was traveling at least every 3 weeks. During award show season, during sweeps, during red carpets, during whatever. When I was based in Winnipeg, I was flying back and forth from Winnipeg to Los Angeles. And then when we were doing travel tourism programming, I was flying. There was one weekend where I was in Toronto covering one red carpet, and then Vancouver the next weekend. The next Sunday. On the Saturday I was in Toronto, Sunday I was in Vancouver. And then there was one time where we taped Christmas programming in Houston, Texas. I came home for about 6 hours and then flew to Montreal where we taped another set of Christmas shows because we had 2 tourism boards sponsoring these very, very overpriced shows that we were producing. So, and then there was another time when we were in Phoenix taping tourism programming, and then I came home for, again, I think it was about 4 hours, and then I had to fly to Orlando with Dreams Take Flight and do a full day at Disney with kids, and then come back the same night. So, when people go and say, when people feel bad or pity for me, that we didn't go anywhere, we didn't do anything, and I would go and say, but you know what? We get to do sweet fuck all and screw around and do nothing when you're back at work. So if we wanted to go away for the weekend or 3 days or something midweek, we can. We don't want to, though. We don't want to. We're both just exhausted. We're enjoying doing nothing. And again, I've mentioned before that we will sleep in till almost noon most days. 10:30 is kind of our usual time. That's when husband will go to the gym, do his workout. He's a fitness model, so he keeps a regular gym. We have a gym in our house, so he goes to the gym. I will go to the bathtub for an hour and a half or so. I will get caught up on emails. I'll touch base with my teams because I am still running a business. I'm not, completely done. And I'll catch up on emails, send some texts, have some phone calls with my team. And then we'll either do lunch, or we'll walk the dogs, or we'll meet up with our team and do something and do a little bit of work or whatever. But it's not an 8-hour day. I'm not working 40 hours a week anymore. And that's something that I don't miss. I really don't miss. So Mom, who said you're going to be bored 3 years later, I'm still good. Still good. If we want to we've got a beautiful house. We've got a great big backyard. The dogs love it. In Los Angeles, we've got pools. We have a pool in the backyard. So, like I said, husband has a gym, and I'm not just talking like there's like a weight bench and then a couple dumbbells. We're talking like full on gym, okay? Because that's his business. That's his life. That's his job. That's how he makes his money. So we're talking gym, like gym, like more equipment than a hotel gym has, just so we're clear. Yeah. So, but yeah, we have this low key life. We're not sitting there dreading Sunday night that we got to get to work Monday, and we're not, counting down the days like, yes, it's a long weekend. Yes. I was that guy one time. I was. And I don't want to be him again. I really don't. I don't. So that's 10 minutes into why I'm thinking summer's over. Not a big deal for me. Now, I'm going to talk about some other stuff on this Scribble, and it starts right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
JB here, back on the Scribble. Election season is in full swing for our American friends, and it's kind of funny to call it election season because it's not even necessarily election year. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated at how and because, like I said, I've talked about being in Los Angeles so often, or West Hollywood, and I'm exposed to, American news every day of my life. Canadians we're just in awe of how the American political system works. And it's the way it's set up. So, I mean, am I criticizing the politicians? Am I criticizing the voters? Am I criticizing, like the Constitution or, whatever sets it up? It's an observation. And it's weird because in Canada, if there's, obviously we have different levels of government for, municipal, provincial, or federal. But obviously the big election for Americans is the presidential election, right? That would be federal. And so when it comes to a Canadian federal election, and I was just saying this to my colleague Tim the other day, the Canadians a lot of times don't even know when the election is. And the last time that we had one was during the pandemic. And we know that because it was made such a big deal that Justin Trudeau is sending Canadians to the polls during this pandemic when Canadians are supposed to be locked down and not in big groups of people. So that's how I know. Now, what year was it? I don't recall. I don't know. It was during the pandemic. That's my timestamp. That's my marker in placing it and when it happened. So our next one then for Canadians would be within the next year and a half, 2 years. Again, depending on when that last one was. So with Americans, though, it's strange because it seems like the president is just elected in November and then is sworn in January. And then in January, the next campaign starts like right away. Even though that president has 4 years in the office, in the White House, there's already like these preparations for the next presidential campaign. Sometimes I guess it's maybe a few months, into the presidency. Canadians don't have that interest. So the fact that I just said that Canadians don't even know when the next one is, if you are an American or you're somewhere else and you know a Canadian or you want to just put it out there on your social media and ask Canadians, like when the next election is, they are not tuned in for months. They are not that into politics. You might have some of those really dedicated supporters who are very, very vocal on social media because there's that keyboard courage, I think it's called. But I don't know anybody and I know a lot of people, I don't know anybody in Canada that is like going to rallies and is so fired up. It happens, yes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But Canadians aren't into politics like that. If you were to ask, and I have because I report on election nights for local media. If I were to go and survey and randomly ask 20 people in my neighborhood, can you name all of the candidates that are riding, that are in our, it's called a riding, that are running in our riding? I don't know that I would ever get 100% of them that could name everybody. And again, I'm tuned in and I can't name everybody sometimes. So Canadians are just not into it. Americans are so fired up. Everything, I've made this observation, you can hear it for yourself. Everything is fight. Trump wants you to fight. Kamala wants you to fight. We've got to fight. We've got to fight. Fight this, fight that, fight the whatever. Canadians, let's talk about the military. Canadian military serves. You serve the country. American military, you fight for your country. You fight for your country. The election, Americans, you fight the election. You fight. And that's exactly, this isn't me just like mocking Americans. I'm not doing that at all. These are the words that everybody uses. And so just the hostility, the vitriol might be not the right word, but like just the whole idea of an election campaign in the United States and really, North America and many countries is to have that combative back and forth between the candidates. But they are, I can't explain it. I don't know many people. Yes, you have Justin Trudeau supporters, as I said, but when we had that trucker convoy in Ottawa during the pandemic, I don't know, because Justin Trudeau said to do something, Canadians were not jumping and doing. I guess we saw that with the vaccines and, and wearing masks and doing things. At the beginning, Trudeau was kind of doing that whole fatherly kind of pleading, like, we're going to get through this together, everybody. We're in this together. And the longer it dragged out and the vaccine was late or whatever it was, then he started to take a tone with Canadians. Nope, Canadians were not having it. Canadians weren't having it. No, not having it. Not having it. And that was kind of when things really took a turn for his popularity in the country. And then you have the trucker convoy that then had the government, freezing people's bank accounts and doing all these things. That seemed to be an oversight in the opinion of a lot of people. So again, his favorability goes down. And again, you have the politicians maybe using that lingo. But no, I'm trying to think about it now. The fight just doesn't seem to really come up in Canada because perhaps what it is that you don't have Canadian governments fighting to take back, financial supports and different things like gay rights and all those things aren't threatened in Canada. So it's a little bit, women's rights aren't threatened in Canada. And in fact, by the way, I should point out that there are very few things that you'll have all of the parties, because in Canada there's more than one. There's more than the two parties that, like, the states. You know, the states, I guess, will have like independents or whatever, but Canada has the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, the New Democratic NDP, New Democratic Party, and then you'll have the Bloc Québécois. You'll have the Green Party. So there's actually quite a few different parties in Canada, 5 in most areas. When it comes to Pride, the Pride Festival, that is one of the few times you will see all levels of government. And there's a famous picture, I believe it was Vancouver, where you had Trudeau, you had whoever the other party leaders were at the time, a picture of the 3 or 4 of them at the Pride Festival together. They've either got, rainbow flags or Canadian flags or whatever it is. You've got our party leaders there celebrating the gay community in Canada. That's what. So again, they might not agree on the pandemic and the shutdowns and the vaccines or whatever, but they were together when it came to welcoming Vladimir Zelensky to Canada. They were all. Now this is where it's a little bit different on the support for Ukraine. But I'm saying at the time when that all started, it was a unified front. All the parties were together. When it came to some other things, cybersecurity, there's just different things that they really take an issue with. And of course, when it comes to when there was the whole thing about Roe versus Wade in the United States, all levels of the Canadian government said women's rights, women's protections, not in trouble in this country. Not in trouble. Canada wasn't even involved. And that wasn't even a discussion topic in Canada. But the Canadian politicians felt the need to kind of put it on record and say, you know what? Women, you're cool in this country. Don't you? We're not. We're not doing anything with that. You want to do this, whatever with your body, whether it's medical, if the doctor says it's going to save your life to not have the baby, that is your right in Canada. It's your right. So it's fascinating, right? You don't have that in the United States. The unification or the unity would be the word, of the political parties. You just don't. Maybe you saw that after the Trump assassination attempt, but look at what happened right after the because it was the Republican, what is it called? The Republican National Convention, where you had before that Joe Biden coming out and saying, we've got to stop this, we can't do this. Trump comes out on the stage that last day. Was it the last day that he was there? I think it was, whatever it was. And for that first 5-10 minutes, you're kind of like, oh wow, did this soften him? Oh my, Trump kind of seems, that's pretty cool. Trump is, okay, he's, this changed him. He's and then he just launches into the usual Trump stuff. But, I kind of thought, hey, maybe they're going to settle down. Maybe they're going to simmer down, guys, simmer down. Nope. Right back to, so, and then there's that word. But again, for as much as Joe Biden says, we've got to tone it down, tamp it down, whatever, there's still that word of fight. How can you have, that's mixed messaging. You can't go and say, we've got to... Then find another word besides fight. Because when I hear the word fight, I envision UFC, I envision street fighting where people are kicking the shit out of each other. That's what I think of when I think of a fight. I think of raised voices, fists flying, whatever. So you're using that word. You're using the word with your own people. Your own people being your supporters, your voter, right? Your party, whoever it might be, the citizens, the voters, whatever. You're using that word, fight. Spin it for me. Spin that word fight and convince me it's not an aggressive word. It's not an aggressive word. Go ahead. I'll wait. I'll give you time. I'll give you 5 seconds. Go. Give me an example. But you can't, because that's just not the case. You get what I'm saying. So with the presidential debates or the vice presidential debates happening now, more so as we're heading in through September, I don't know. And again, what comes of them? It's going to be, you ask the question, you're not going to get an answer. And I talked about this before when I was interviewing. I've never been a political reporter. I've been a columnist where I've given opinion and an observation in a column. And then when I do election nights, I will be in the newsroom. What I do is I'm in touch with the candidates, and so when somebody wins, I'll call them for the quote. So, but I'm not analyzing. I'm not a political reporter in that sense. I'll be the stringer who's getting information and then dropping it into somebody else's story, or I'll be adding in some stats or whatever. I'm compiling it, but I'm not I'm not an expert on any of the politicians or the candidates that are running. So it's, you just kind of look at this and go, you're not answering questions. You're not answering questions. When I have, for one of our radio platform, or maybe it was the podcast, years and years ago, I said, here's what I'm going to do. We're having a mayoral election, a civic election in my hometown of Winnipeg. There were 9 candidates. I said, I want to interview each of these people. I think there was only one woman. I was going to say each of these guys. But yeah, there was one woman, and then I think the rest were men. So 8 men and 1 woman. And I laid it out there very clearly. I said, it's a 5-minute conversation. You and me on the phone. You are not allowed to name any of the other candidates. There's no mudslinging. So you can't talk about the current mayor. You can't do this, that. This is, like when you watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette and somebody uses their one-on-one time to complain about the others or tattletale or whatever. So that's how I kind of laid it out to these candidates. I said, it's you and me. You're telling me, you're introducing yourself to me. For 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you basic questions about whether it's, I don't remember what the issues were at the time, but, crime or, something. I almost wanted to have a buzzer. I said, if you mention another candidate's name, like I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to cut you off. I'm not going to let you finish the sentence. That's not what we're doing. That's not going to help me learn who you are. I want to know about your policy, your platform, what you're running on. You can comment on maybe the state of the city, but you're not criticizing the guy that's in the office now. You're not criticizing the other candidates. You're not, as soon as you're verging onto that territory, I'm shutting you down, I'm stopping you, and I'm getting you back on track. Now, what I learned, though, was that by mapping it out and saying it's going to be 5 minutes, it was never 5 minutes, folks. Not one of them was 5 minutes. And there was one time, transit was the bus. One of the guys he had everything completely laid out as to how he was going to fix transit. So I said, okay, so what about just something basic? I don't remember what it was. He dances, talk. And so he's done. And I said, all right, but you didn't answer the question. So again, and then at that point you're out of time. There you go. You're done. That was, and because I'm recording this and we're going to play this for audio, these weren't just like, private conversations. They knew that I was essentially interviewing them in a sense. I said, your answer is going to speak for itself. I will call you out. I'll summarize what you just said by going and saying, all right, well, you didn't answer the question, but let's move on. And the audience can pick up on that. They can judge for themselves, but I will sum it up and say, you didn't answer it. You dance. You didn't give me an answer on that. So I'm fascinated as an observer to watch the American election. Again, my colleague Tim that I mentioned, he's like terrified about how things are going to play out for Canadians because if Trump gets in, and then how it's going to trickle up. The shit's going to roll upstream is how that is going to work, I guess. So Tim is concerned. Tim's kind of older anyway, and he's been around long enough to kind of see how things work in both countries. But nevertheless, as a Canadian observer, I'm very interested to see how this American election plays out.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here, back on The Scribble. And again, one of the things that I love about this show, yes, it's me, just spewing my thoughts and opinions for 30 minutes at you. And I do, as much as I can, remind you of the email address to email me because I'm always fascinated, right? You have to remember that my newspaper column that I started over 20 years ago, and the website, it started as a commentary website, is called speakfreewithjb.com. And being a loudmouth, I've always felt the need to empower people and say, no, speak up. Don't just, speak your mind. Don't be, disrespectful and ignorant about it. But if you have a very strong opinion, right, don't go around insulting people and like name caller because you sort of lose your argument at that point. But definitely if you have an opinion, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, I love hearing from you. And sometimes I will even, I talked earlier about how I'll lay in the bathtub for an hour and a half in the morning when we're starting our days here. I love going back and forth. And I'm saying I'm not having like heated debates where somebody's calling me if you call me an idiot or a fucking Canadian and blah blah blah. Well, I'm not gonna, I don't give into that. But if you can disagree with me and sort of share your story or plead your case as to why you have this stance on something, I'm open for it. You're not going to change my mind necessarily, but I'll hear you out. And that's I guess maybe what the American politicians say when they're fighting. I'm Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Talk to you next time. Remember to fight.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a Speak Free media presentation.